Shaquille O'Neal is one of the best centers of all time, known for his utter dominance in the paint. But in today's NBA, most centers are versatile bigs who are more known for stretching out the floor behind the three-point line, making you wonder, would Shaq still be as good in the modern NBA? Today we're finding out as we put him in the 2025 NBA Draft. And O'Neal couldn't have possibly landed in a better city to start off his career. Going #1 to Atlanta meant he'd be joining forces with all-star point guard Trae Young, who also happened to be one of the NBA's top playmakers, which meant there would be numerous opportunities for Shaq in the pick and roll, with Young setting him up for easy finishes around the rim. But this wasn't his extent of his role on the team. He was also a monster down low in the post. Whenever the moment arose for him to get a look on the block, he was executing with perfection, and it was shown his stat sheet as he put up killer numbers that solidified him as the undisputed Rookie of the Year. Although nobody was doubting his ability to put up impressive stat lines, the real question was, could he be successful in this era? Which, to find that out, he's gonna have to rack up some accolades in this simulation. Luckily though, his team was already in position to try for that championship, facing off against the Indiana Pacers in his playoff debut. What a star point guard of their own that would be clashing head to head with Trae Young, who would have his hands tied with this matchup all series long, which in turn meant very quickly a lot of pressure was about to be put on the rookie big man. The weight of winning this series was ultimately in his hands, but in all honesty, this wasn't as challenging as it may seem. Miles Turner was guarding him, and while he's a great defender, he was incredibly undersized in comparison to Shaq. So with his advantage in size, the Diesel was hounding Miles game after game, producing noteworthy numbers for a rookie in his playoff debut series, and ultimately he'd be leading the force in Atlanta getting past round 1. Big series from Shaq. I would not be surprised if this Hawks team makes a very deep playoff run. But that run was about to be put to the test in round 2. The New York Knicks were stacked with talent at every single position, 1 through 5, and this was gonna be a dogfight. Because as some of you know, Trae Young has formed quite the hatred from the Knicks.
Fuck Trae Young! Yo, Trae Young looks like my dad's dick! Trae Young's born! Trae Young's born!
So you can expect an all-out war about to take place between these teams, and Shaq was right in the middle of it. The Knicks' major acquisition this season was Karl-Anthony Towns' addition to the team, and the expectations were sky high for this roster, with fans anticipating this playoff run since the preseason. Towns was also a much more respectable matchup for Shaq than last round against Turner. Cat had plenty of size to hold his own down low, and was entire tiers ahead of Miles offensively. So without a doubt, this will be a matchup to watch through this series, but it wasn't the biggest story of game 1. The real headlines would be of the backcourt duo, with Jalen Brunson catching scorching hot at just the right time, and it seemed like no matter what the defense did, he just refused to miss shots. And if Brunson's 44 points weren't enough to impress you, his running mate Mikal Bridges was draining home 8 3-point shots on 10 attempts, leading way for the Knicks as this one was ending at the final buzzer in a complete blowout. But as the Hawks walk off court, keep in mind, this is a best-of-7 series, and with Game 2's tip-off getting underway, we'd get a glimpse of what the series had in store. Trae Young was stepping up for Atlanta, and he'd go out there in hostile territory to erupt for a new career high, putting 57 points on the board for the Hawks, officially one-upping Brunson's already astonishing performance from Game 1. It was clear there was a lot of series left to be played, and neither side was going to let up against the other. And as Atlanta took home Game 2, the trash talking would begin.
I hope these New York fans find their way to the exit real quick. Boo, take y'all ass home.
And with this all knotted up, Atlanta was now back at home. And with the fan support behind him, Shaq was about to be unleashed. So far in the series, he's been relatively quiet, playing his role and allowing Trae Young to establish the pace for their offense. But here in Atlanta, O'Neal was the aggressor and actively looking to force scoring opportunities whenever possible. With the difference of going up 2-1 versus going down 2-1 looming, Shaq was by far the best player on the court for both teams, exhibiting by far his best game of his career to date, and it was paid off with the lead in the series. However, Hawks fans shouldn't get ahead of themselves, because heading into Game 4, the Knicks still had a chance to win back home court advantage, which would all start with the exceptional play of Karl-Anthony Towns, who got a heap of criticism after letting a rookie outshine him. By all means, he intended to make up for his underwhelming performance in Game 3, coming out like a man on a mission on the offensive end, attacking recklessly every trip down, and far more often than not, finding plenty of success. He was using his shot creating abilities to score up, over, around, and everywhere in between against Shaq in a 38-point outburst But that was only half of the story. Shaq was loving the energy in this matchup, and his own competitiveness was being fueled by talents trying to outmatch him. Before our eyes, we were seeing Shaq begin to break through his potential, and we're getting our first glimpse of his battles with a modern-day center. This epic duel would go the full duration of the match, and in the end, it would come down to the last couple of possessions, but with Shaq executing when it mattered the most. To finish with 41 points, the Hawks were taking a very commanding 3-1 lead over the Knicks. After falling big in the playoffs, the media were quick to bash New York, but they still had hope. Back in New York for Game 5, the Knicks were getting back to what was working for them to win Game 1, and it was a tremendous help being back in front of their home crowd. Their mentality was to take this one game at a time as they attempt to claw back into this. And even though this was coming down to the final possession of the match, Hawks swinging the ball around, Bogdanovich gets on the left, he's driving in, Josh Hart, great defender, Bogdanovich, a tough lay, it rims out. The Knicks survive a nail biter. In the end, New York was able to squeeze by after getting a stop late, keeping their season alive another game. And the war would rage on, because Game 6 was yet again a dogfight from start to finish. This time again becoming another battle of the bigs, with Cat and Shaq both going at one another to see who can outlast the other. This one would go all the way into overtime, but the Hawks may have ran out of gas, because New York maintained the lead in the entire additional 5 minutes of the game, and were one match away for pulling out the comeback. They done it. They had forced a Game 7, meaning this epic clash was all concluding with one final game in New York, where the battle of these titans would be decided. But it wasn't looking like this Game 7 was going to be living up to the theatrics, because as the first half was closing out, it was a massacre by the Knicks, taking an enormous 25-point lead as they were scorching hot from everywhere, and if Atlanta doesn't do something fast, it could get ugly. So with their backs against the wall, the Hawks come out in the second half with nothing to lose. They were fighting every possession just in hopes of cutting the lead down little by little. It was a joint effort between Shaq and Trey, and as the minutes progressed, this was looking more and more likely that Atlanta could come back. Because as this got into the fourth quarter, the Hawks were eventually cutting it down to single digits, and they'd maintain that reach going into the final moments where they still had a chance for one last run. This has been one of the craziest series I've ever seen in a sim. Every game has been close. The Hawks went up 3-1. The Knicks have come back. The Hawks were down 20 in this game. They've come back down 6 now. Jalen Brunson with it, kicks down low to Cat. Shaq there for the defense. He gets the stop. With just under 2 minutes left, the Hawks have a chance to make the comeback. Bogdanovich pulls it quick for 3. As I've barely even had time to focus on the commentating, the Hawks have gotten within 3 of the Knicks now. They're getting it to Jalen Brunson in the post, it looks like, against the smaller Trae Young. Brunson using his size, tries to draw some contact, doesn't get the foul. Trae Young gets the rebound now. They have a chance to tie or get within 1. Bogdanovich again hit the big 3 last time. They kick it out to Trae. Shaq has the mismatch. You got to get Bogdanovich from deep. Who does he think he is? The Knicks with it now. Jalen Brunson, he's forcing the issue, draws the foul. Brunson hits both free throws, puts them up by 5. I really feel like the Hawks missed a chance there. Shaq had the smaller defender, and then Bogdanovich just pulled it. Trae Young in the step back, gets some space. He's driving in on Jalen Brunson. Trae Young the hop step. His lay is good. Back within 3. These final minutes continue to be back and forth. Neither side can seem to get a stop. Brunson now. Trae Young guarding him again. Brunson, the little pull up. Wow. Neither side wants to take their foot off of the gas in the final moments. 45 seconds left. Hawks still find themselves down by 5. Johnson trying to drive it in. Nowhere to go. Shaquille O'Neal gets it. Karl-Anthony Towns guarding him. The backdoor cut to Trae. Trae's lay. Trae, he bricks it. Down by 7 now. What a miss from Trae Young in a moment like this. Shaq found the perfect cut, but Trae could not execute the inbound now. Moments left in his game. Trae gets it. Trae driving in. He tries to force it. Trae is blocked. Trae is having an abysmal final minute. Jalen Brunson, his pull-up, the dagger. That man is special. This one is over. Atlanta has officially lost, but it won't be the end for Shaq. The next season, Shaq was picking up where he left off after the climatic finish to his first postseason. Fans were eager to see how he would build upon a solid playoff run as a rookie, but in all honesty, he was experiencing a bit of a sophomore slump. His stats technically did see an increase, but it was barely worth talking about and was far from the expected major jump that analysts were predicting. Regardless though, the Hawks were improving as a unit from the year prior, and as they faced different adversities together, their chemistry was becoming sky high on their way to their best record in the Eastern Conference. All for tragedy to strike as the playoffs roll around against the 8th seed of Miami Heat in the first round. The underdogs led by Jimmy Butler were absolutely humiliating the Hawks, in full control every game of the series to eventually send home the East's best team in only 5 games. And with it, the Hawks were looking like frauds, and you have to question Shaq's fit in a shooting league, which was further supported in the next season, with another average year from Shaq during the regular season, barely improving on the year prior, and eventually meeting the Orlando Magic in round 1. And as the first seed again, they were being crushed by the Magic with ease, and I was starting to have some doubts. The Hawks might just be a regular season team. I think Shaq's lack of three-point shooting in a shooting league is hurting them more than it's helping them, and he hasn't improved much since his rookie season. But by the 2028 playoffs, I would be eating my own words. Out of the blue, everything started to click for Atlanta. Scoring was looking as easy as ever, and even though they lost some of their depth in the offseason, every player on the team were executing perfectly. Round 1 was a scare yet again that would go to an alarming 6 games. But in round 2, the rematch against the Knicks, the Hawks were finally having a dominant round to assert themselves as the real deal. The Knicks no longer had Karl Anthony Towns, but they were still a strong team in the East, and as the Hawks swept them, there was potential for a trip to the finals. And as the final opponent was a Wizards team with multiple borderline all-stars at every position, they didn't have a single real superstar, which would ultimately be their downfall. Because at this point, Shaq was looking more and more like a superstar in this league. His playoff averages in this run were on par with the best of the best, despite only averaging 23 and 12 in the regular season, which was in the end enough to give the Hawks the edge, and finally getting Shaq into the NBA Finals. But his final hurdle was an out-of-this-world opponent in San Antonio. Wemby was the prototypical modern NBA center, a big man who was able to stretch the floor and create for himself while still being impactful on the glass and defense. Luckily for Shaq, he did have the advantage of being twice Wembanyama's size, and with that, he'd average over 28 points a game against the French native in an attempt to keep his team competing for a chance at the ring. But unfortunately, the Hawks just weren't talented enough, and Victor's speed and shot creating ability was a matchup nightmare for O'Neal. The Spurs were sending Atlanta back to reality and sending Shaq to the offseason with a big decision as an unrestricted free agent. Literally every team in the league made an offer to Shaquille O'Neal, but the only two he's really interested in is these Sons of the Hawks. So he's either staying in Atlanta or he's going out and joining the Phoenix Suns. He was choosing to remain loyal to Atlanta and complete the unfinished business that he set out to do. There has been doubts about his abilities to fit into this league with a slow progression early in his career, but this season Shaq was about to put all the hate to rest. He was playing the best basketball we've seen of his career so far, dominating on both ends of the court just like we've known him to do back in the 90s. Part of this may have been due to the addition of Tyler Hero, a knockdown shooter who opened things up for Shaq, but regardless the reasoning, there was no denying the Aristotle was a force to be reckoned with. Across the board, every stat was a new career high for Shaq. Overnight, he broke out into a completely new tier of talent, taking the league by storm with no signs of slowing down anytime soon, and the league had no choice but to give him his recognition. Shaq's done it. He's earned his first MVP with some crazy numbers on the season, which means now he is one trophy closer to that goal of proving himself in this modern day NBA era. And that goal could get a lot closer than most may think, because in the playoffs, it was starkly similar to last season. The Hawks were working their way round by round, defeating every team in their path with very little drama and having never risked elimination, on the way to hoisting up the trophy as Eastern Conference champs, just to finally face off against Wembanyama again, and the Spurs in the NBA Finals. Of course, last year, the Spurs were coming out victorious with very little retaliation from the Hawks. But this season, expectations were much higher for Atlanta, with the MVP on their roster. And while he was living up to the moment and meeting those expectations with the lights the absolute brightest, this still would be far from an easy series. Wembanyama was last season's MVP and was the runner-up this year, meaning he's right there with Shaq as far as the best players in the game, and this was bound to be a series for the ages. Every game was a down-to-the-wire, back-and-forth slugfest, which was bound to take a mental toll on both sides. Luckily for Shaq, he's already built some resilience to this type of series, after the epic duel with the Knicks dating back to his rookie season. So as this series advanced, game after game, Shaq and his group were putting that experience to the test and stealing a game here and there, forcing it all the way to another climatic win or go home, Game 7, which just like it was against New York, this would be another match where neither side has interest in giving up the edge, drawing closer and closer to a final second finish, all to see if Shaq will complete his goal this season or fail miserably. And there's only one way to find out. We have another climactic Game 7 finish. We had one in Shaq's rookie year against the Knicks. Now we have one here in the NBA Finals for a chance at a championship. 2 minutes, 20 seconds left. They're swinging it over to Johnson. Shaq trying to get position down low. Trae Young at the top. They're up by 1 right now. Trae Young wants the ISO. 1-on-1, 7 seconds left of the clock. Trae making his move, driving to the paint. Trae over the larger defender. It's off. He's fighting for the board. He gets it. Shaq is a 3. We all know he's not going to take that. Paint with it now. Driving it in. Shaq not getting a touch this possession. Wemby the board. San Antonio now on the other end, down by 1, 2 minutes left in the game. They're going quick. I'm pretty sure he was out of bounds. That's a tough play. These players out of control. Atlanta now not slowing it down. Tyler Hero going quick on the break. Hero draws the foul and 1. Tyler Hero does end up hitting the free throw to put his team up by 4, but Wembanyama has it now with plenty of time to get back in this game. Spin move on Shaq. The quick move, he loses it though. He drives it straight into traffic. Trae Young gonna break. Trae going all the way. Trae Young, another bad shot. The Spurs the board again. Another opportunity for the Spurs here late. They're swinging it over to Wembanyama. Wemby has a mismatch on the smaller man. Shaq's not on him. They're likely going to get a down low to Wemby. He's getting the post position now. Wembanyama down low with it. 6 seconds left on the shot clock. Wemby, the fake. The post fade is good. Now it's a 2-point game. Atlanta is up late. You have to score here to keep this lead. Keep the win at arm's length. They're swinging it around to Pate. Shaq coming to set the screen for Pate. Pate rolling. Wemby doesn't pick it up. The deep 3. It rims out. Shaq the board though. He kicks it out. Johnson 3. It's off. The Spurs down the other end. They're pushing the pace, but they lose it. They lose it. Atlanta steals it. Tyler Hero off to the races. One-man debate. Atlanta is now comfortably up by 4 late in this game. There's still time for San Antonio, but Atlanta's in great position. Flan with the ball. If you're going to stop here, that might be the dagger. Flan drop. Wow, and 1. Just like that, the Spurs are now within 1. Trae Young with the ball, though, trying to extend the lead back up. Trae, a difficult lay, rims out. Wemby fights for the 4th timeout. San Antonio now with a chance to take the lead here late. 20 seconds left. He's driving it in on Shaq. Wembanyama, the modern center versus the classic center, draws the foul. Wembanyama hit the first free throw. He sinks the second to give him the lead. Atlanta timeout. There is 15 seconds left in this game and a lot riding on this situation. The difference between an NBA championship and falling short here in this moment. Trae Young with the basketball. 10 seconds left in the game. Game 7, the NBA Finals. Trae Young is not going to involve Shaq. It's 1-on-1. Trae Young, the pull-up jumper. Trae sinks it in. No timeouts for San Antonio. Wembanyama the full court heave and short. The Hawks do it. Trae saves the day. And just like that, in only 5 total seasons, Shaq is at the top of the basketball world in the modern NBA, earning not only a ring, but establishing himself as the top guy in the league with an MVP and the Finals MVP, and in turn proving he can stick around in the modern league. But what if a modern center like Wemby took on Shaq's career? Find out by clicking this video next.